And it was John who kind of pushed the button on me one night at a party when he said,
She was one of Hollywood's brightest rising stars, standing inches away from a lifetime of fame, fortune, and leading roles beside the biggest names in film. Studios were betting on her future. Fans were falling in love with her. Everything was finally falling into place. But then she walked away from it all. Her name was Dolores Hart, and the reason behind her choice would shock Hollywood, break a man's heart, test her faith, and quietly rewrite what success really means. That decision was the beginning of many heartbreaking struggles no one could have ever imagined. And after decades of silence, one question still hangs in the air. Did she ever regret it? And is there any chance she could return to the world she left behind? An unstable childhood. She was one of the brightest stars Hollywood had ever seen. She had everything most people spend a lifetime chasing: beauty, fame, money, and a future that looked limitless. Studio executives called her the next big thing. Fans adored her. Leading men lined up to work with her. But then, at the height of her success, she abandoned red carpets, movie contracts, and a life of luxury for a reason so unexpected, it left the entire world stunned. Her name was Dolores Hart, and she was born on October 20th, 1938, in Chicago, Illinois. But what most people never knew is that her rise to fame was built on a childhood filled with uncertainty, broken promises, and constant upheaval. Dolores came into the world surrounded by artistic ambition. Her father, Bert Hicks, was an actor chasing roles wherever he could find them. Her mother, Harriet Hicks, tried to hold the family together while supporting his dreams. But behind closed doors, their marriage was already unraveling. And when Dolores was just 3 years old, her father walked away. That single moment changed her life forever. Suddenly, stability disappeared. Money became tight. Her mother struggled to provide on her own, and Dolores had to be passed between relatives, moving from home to home, school to school. Every time she started to feel settled, another move followed. It wasn't just emotionally exhausting. It disrupted her education and her sense of identity. While other kids were building roots, Dolores was learning how to adapt. The financial hardship that followed only made things worse. With her father gone, Dolores and her mother relied heavily on extended family just to get by. There were moments when the future felt fragile, when security seemed like something meant for other people. Yet somehow, even in all that instability, Dolores found something solid to hold on to: her faith. Raised Catholic, she leaned deeply into religion as a source of comfort. The church became her refuge, and prayer became her routine. While her world kept shifting, her belief system stayed steady. It gave her structure when life offered none. But fate had other plans for Dolores. Despite her father's absence, Hollywood still found its way back into Dolores's story. Through marriage, her uncle became Mario Lanza, the legendary tenor and film star. That connection gave Dolores indirect access to the entertainment world, and suddenly, movie sets didn't feel so distant anymore. Her father's pursuit of acting had already taken the family from Chicago to Hollywood earlier in her childhood, exposing Dolores to film studios, auditions, and creative circles at a young age. Even amid the instability, something sparked inside her. She didn't just want to watch movies, she wanted to be in them. Later, she attended Marymount College, a Catholic institution where she began studying seriously and developing her acting skills. On campus, Dolores threw herself into school plays and local theater productions. Each performance sharpened her craft. Each applause-filled ending fueled her confidence. Then, in 1957, Everything changed when Dolores landed her film debut opposite Elvis Presley in Loving You. Overnight, she became America's new sweetheart. That on-screen kiss with Elvis exploded across newspapers and magazines. Teen girls gasped. Hollywood buzzed. And suddenly, the girl who once bounced between relatives was walking red carpets. What followed was nothing short of meteoric. Within just 5 years, Dolores appeared in 10 films, an extraordinary pace for any young actress, especially one so new to the industry. Studios rushed to cast her. Critics praised her versatility. She moved effortlessly between romantic leads, dramatic roles, and historical productions. The press began comparing her to Grace Kelly, admiring her poise, beauty, and classic screen presence. She was marketed as wholesome, refined, and unmistakably all-American. By the early 1960s, Dolores Hart was considered one of Hollywood's brightest rising stars. Her box office numbers climbed, fan clubs multiplied. She was routinely paired with major male leads and positioned for a long, glamorous career. From the outside, it looked perfect. But beneath the fame was still that same little girl who grew up moving from place to place. The same child who learned early that nothing lasts forever. The same young woman who found peace, not in applause, but in prayer. And while Hollywood was busy planning her future, Dolores was quietly questioning it. Because just as her career reached its peak, she began feeling pulled toward something far more unexpected. And eventually, she would make a decision so shocking, so unheard of, that it would leave the entire entertainment industry stunned and wondering how a rising star could walk away from everything she had worked so hard to build. The shocking exit. By the early 1960s, Dolores Hart was exactly where every young actress dreamed of being. She had shared the screen with Elvis Presley, Montgomery Clift, and Anthony Quinn. Studio executives were lining up projects for her. Magazines praised her elegance. Fans wrote letters by the thousands. But then, in 1962, she quietly wrapped up her final film work. And by 1963, she was gone. Dolores made the shocking decision to become a nun. So, she entered the Abbey of Regina Laudis, leaving behind movie contracts, public attention, and a future that most people would never dare walk away from. Hollywood was stunned. People could not understand why a young actress at the peak of her career would step away from everything she had built. Reporters searched for explanations. Fans assumed there had to be some hidden scandal or personal breakdown. Industry insiders whispered theories, but none of them were true. Dolores said the reason was simple. She felt God calling her. According to Dolores, the pull toward religious life did not arrive overnight. It had been growing quietly inside her for years, even while she was filming movies and posing for publicity photos. She spoke openly about struggling with the surface-level nature of Hollywood and feeling disconnected from the deeper meaning she wanted in her life. Fame did not bring peace, and success did not fill the space she felt inside. In fact, one role in particular stayed with her. In 1961, she starred in Francis of Assisi, where she played a nun. At the time, it was just another acting job. But later, Dolores admitted that the experience affected her far more than she expected. Being surrounded by real religious communities during filming forced her to confront thoughts she had been pushing aside. She began to imagine a different kind of future, one that had nothing to do with premieres or box office numbers. Even during earlier projects, her spiritual interest was already present. While working with Elvis Presley, Dolores said they often talked about faith and the Bible between takes. Those conversations stayed with her. They made her realize that her heart was moving in a direction Hollywood could not follow. Still, The choice was not easy. She was young. She was successful. She had financial security and professional respect. Walking away meant giving up everything she had worked for since childhood. It also meant disappointing people who had invested in her career, including agents, producers, and fans who believed she was just getting started. But Dolores said the calling felt stronger than logic. She later explained that she did not see her decision as rejecting acting. She saw it as answering something deeper. In her memoir, The Ear of the Heart, An Actress's Journey from Hollywood to Holy Vows, she wrote that she felt God calling her directly. And once she recognized it, she could not pretend it wasn't there. When news broke that she had entered a monastery, newspapers and magazines ran story after story. Headlines framed it as a mystery or a sacrifice. Reporters described her choice as unbelievable. Fans flooded mailboxes with letters, some confused, some heartbroken, and others deeply moved by her courage. Public reaction was divided. Many fans could not accept that someone would willingly leave fame behind. Others admired her strength, seeing her decision as proof that not everyone measures success the same way. But what made it even harder for people to understand was Dolores herself. She did not fit the stereotype. She was both a Hollywood starlet and a deeply devoted Catholic, two identities that seemed impossible to reconcile in the public eye. Some assumed she must have been running from something. Dolores spent years correcting that narrative. She explained again and again that there was no scandal or crisis she was trying to avoid. It was simply a spiritual decision that felt unavoidable. As the years passed, the shock slowly turned into respect. Fans eventually saw her choice as an act of integrity rather than escape. She became known not just as the actress who left Hollywood, but as the woman who followed her faith, no matter the cost. But leaving movies was only the beginning of her struggles. Because while Dolores had found peace in her spiritual path, she was also about to face one of the most painful moments of her life. A broken engagement that would force her to choose, once and for all, between love on earth and devotion to God. The broken engagement. When people talk about Dolores Hart leaving Hollywood, they often focus on the fame she gave up. What gets talked about far less is the man she left behind. His name was Don Robinson, and unlike most people in Dolores's world at the time, he had nothing to do with movies, studios, or celebrity culture. He was a Los Angeles businessman who met Dolores during her Hollywood years, right as her career was taking off in the late 1950s. They met in Los Angeles while she was working on films, and their connection grew naturally. Don was described by those close to Dolores as steady, kind, and deeply supportive. He wasn't dazzled by her fame. He cared about her as a person, not as a rising star. Their relationship became serious quickly, and by the early 1960s, Dolores and Don were engaged. This wasn't a casual romance or a publicity pairing. Dolores later made it clear that she truly loved him. She spoke about him with warmth and respect, saying their engagement was real and heartfelt. Don believed in her. He stood beside her as her career accelerated. He was ready to build a life with her outside the spotlight. From the outside, it looked like the next natural step. A successful young actress, a devoted fiancé, a future that seemed perfectly mapped out. But inside Dolores, something else was happening. Even while planning a wedding, she was wrestling with the same spiritual questions that had been following her for years. She had already been spending time at the Abbey of Regina Lourdes, quietly exploring religious life. She tried to balance both worlds, hoping she could find clarity without hurting anyone. That clarity eventually came, but it came at a devastating cost. In 1963, Dolores made the decision that shocked everyone when she broke off her engagement after she felt called to enter the monastery. Dolores explained later that even though she loved Don deeply, the spiritual pull she felt was stronger than anything else. She said she could not ignore what she believed was God's direction for her life. It was the hardest choice she had ever made. For Dolores, it meant walking away from marriage, family dreams, and a man who had done nothing wrong. For Don, it meant losing the woman he planned to spend his life with. The breakup was quiet, private, and deeply painful. Dolores admitted that leaving Don hurt in ways she still carried with her. She did not pretend it was easy. She cared for him, respected him, and understood exactly what she was asking him to accept. Choosing the convent meant choosing a cloistered life, one that left no room for romance or marriage. Don was devastated. But perhaps the most remarkable part of their story was that he did not turn bitter or disappear from her life completely. Instead, he stayed. Don Robinson never married. Instead, he continued to visit Dolores at the Abbey for more than 40 years. He respected her decision even though it broke his heart. He showed up quietly, consistently, without demanding anything in return. Dolores later spoke about this with deep emotion. She described Don as someone who never abandoned her, even after she chose religious life over their future together. His loyalty became a defining part of her journey. He accepted her path while holding on to his love in his own way, offering friendship, presence, and support across decades. Their relationship transformed from engagement to something much deeper and more complicated. It became a symbol of enduring love without possession. They were no longer a couple, but they remained connected through respect, understanding, and shared history. Dolores often acknowledged how rare that kind of devotion was. Don did not try to change her mind. He did not pressure her to come back. He simply stayed in her life, honoring the choice she had made. For Dolores, this added another layer to her sacrifice. Leaving Hollywood was one thing. Leaving the man she loved was another. She carried both decisions into the monastery, knowing she had permanently altered 2 lives in the process. She later reflected that while her spiritual calling gave her peace, it did not erase the emotional weight of what she had given up. Dolores went on to fully commit to her religious life. Don went on living his, always keeping a place for her in it. Their bond became one of the most human parts of her journey, reminding people that behind the headlines and dramatic choices were real hearts trying to do what they believed was right. And while Dolores had now stepped fully into her new life, the challenges were far from over. Because after the heartbreak of leaving Hollywood and ending her engagement, she would soon face something else entirely. A series of health struggles that tested her faith, her strength, and her ability to keep moving forward. The tragic health battle. By the time most people rediscovered Dolores Hart through documentaries and interviews, they saw a calm, composed woman living quietly at the Abbey of Regina Laudis. However, behind that image was a woman who carried intense pains every single day. It all began in 1997, when Dolores went in for what should have been a routine dental procedure, a root canal. Instead, it triggered a serious autoimmune reaction. Her immune system began attacking her peripheral nerves, setting off a rare and devastating condition called inflammatory sensory neuropathy. From that moment on, her life became divided into before and after. At first, doctors struggled to understand what was happening. Dolores went from specialist to specialist, receiving different opinions and conflicting diagnoses. Some prescribed steroids, others recommended surgery. Each treatment came with its own risks and uncertainty. It took time before she finally found a physician who recognized what she was dealing with and helped establish a long-term care plan. By then, the damage had already been done. The pain never left. Dolores later spoke openly about what it feels like to live inside her body, saying she was never without pain. She described the sensation in her feet as two hot iron rods wrapped around her feet. It wasn't occasional discomfort, it was constant. Walking became difficult. Standing for long periods took effort. Even sitting could be uncomfortable. The condition affected her mobility and her energy, yet she continued showing up for her responsibilities at the Abbey. Outwardly, she remained composed. People often commented on how peaceful she looked and how gentle her presence felt. But those close to her noticed the quiet signs. Her face stayed serene, yet her eyes sometimes revealed how much she was enduring. She learned to live with pain in a way that didn't draw attention to itself. Despite everything, Dolores refused to step away from her religious duties. She continued participating in daily prayer, community life, and spiritual leadership at the Abbey. She attended services. She met with visitors. She offered guidance to others, even on days when simply moving across a room felt exhausting. Her medical journey became constant. She underwent intravenous immunoglobulin therapy, along with other treatments meant to manage symptoms and slow progression. None of it offered a cure. The goal was stability and making life livable. But through it all, Dolores leaned heavily on faith. She spoke often about acceptance, not in a passive way, but as a choice she made every day. She believed that suffering did not erase purpose. Instead of asking why this happened to her, she focused on how to live with it. That mindset turned her into an unexpected voice for others in chronic pain. As she began sharing her story, people dealing with similar conditions reached out to her. Many had never heard of inflammatory sensory neuropathy. Many felt invisible in their own struggles. Dolores started appearing in medical and faith-based publications, offering encouragement and honesty about what long-term illness really looks like. She didn't sugarcoat her experience. She talked about the frustration. She talked about fatigue. And she talked about how pain reshapes daily life. But she also talked about perseverance, about finding meaning even when your body feels unreliable. Her openness helped people feel less alone. For someone who once lived under bright studio lights, this quieter form of influence became just as important. Pain became part of her daily reality, but faith became her anchor, and resilience became her testimony. What's remarkable is that even while managing a serious neurological condition, Dolores continued welcoming people who came seeking wisdom, comfort, or simply curiosity about the actress who became a nun. She listened to their stories. She prayed with them. She reminded them that life doesn't stop being meaningful just because it becomes harder. And as the years passed, her health struggles added another dimension to her already extraordinary story, showing the world that her journey didn't end when she left Hollywood. It only changed shape. But chronic illness brings more than physical pain. It brings long stretches of solitude. It brings moments when the world feels very far away. And it raises a question that many fans still quietly ask today. After decades of silence, sacrifice, and suffering, does Dolores Hart ever feel lonely? And could there ever be a return, even in some small way, to the world she once left behind? Will Dolores ever make a comeback? When Dolores Hart left Hollywood in 1963, the world assumed the hardest part of her journey was what she gave up. But that wasn't the truth, because nothing could have prepared Dolores for what she had to learn how to live without. Walking away from movies also meant walking away from friends, co-workers, fan mail, premieres, and a fast-moving social life that had filled her early 20s. Overnight, she went from busy film sets to the quiet rhythm of monastic life at the Abbey of Regina Laudes. That transition was not easy. Dolores later admitted that the silence felt overwhelming at first. The structure was strict. Days were carefully scheduled around prayer, work, and reflection. There were no crowds, no cameras, and no applause. For someone who had spent years surrounded by people, the stillness took getting used to. She spoke openly about those early years, saying there were moments when loneliness hit hard. There were nights when she questioned herself and wondered whether she had made the right choice. She had followed what she believed was God's call, but that didn't erase human emotion. She missed familiar faces. She missed conversations that didn't revolve around Scripture. She missed the simple comfort of knowing where she belonged socially. It was a kind of emotional withdrawal that no one prepares you for. At the same time, she was learning how to live as a Benedictine nun, which meant surrendering personal independence and adapting to communal life. Privacy became limited. Every part of her day was shared in some way. Even personal struggles had to be carried quietly. Over time, Dolores grew into her role. She eventually became Mother Dolores Hart, OSB, serving first as prioress and later as abbess of the abbey. That placed her in charge of community life, spiritual leadership, and outside relations. She helped guide younger sisters, managed visitors, handled correspondence, and represented the abbey to the public. It was a huge responsibility. Leadership did not remove the loneliness she felt, but it gave her purpose. She now had others depending on her. She had to show strength even on difficult days. She balanced administration with prayer, decision-making with devotion, and public appearances with private reflection. In 2016, she marked a major milestone when she celebrated 50 years of vowed religious life, often referred to as her Golden Jubilee. For Dolores, it was a moment to reflect on how far she had come from Hollywood sound stages to monastery halls, and how much inner work that journey required. Coping with isolation became something she learned gradually. Still, her faith remained central. Dolores leaned deeply into prayer and spiritual discipline, using them as anchors when doubts about her decisions surfaced. She often said that prayer wasn't just a ritual for her. It was how she stayed grounded when emotions felt heavy. The community life at the Abbey also played a huge role in helping her stay strong. The Benedictine order emphasizes shared living, and Dolores found comfort in daily work alongside other sisters. Cooking, cleaning, praying, and tending to responsibilities together helped replace the social world she had left behind. Over time, those relationships became her new family. Another outlet she used to cope with the isolation and loneliness was writing. Her memoir, The Ear of the Heart, an actress's journey from Hollywood to holy vows, allowed her to reflect on her past while also explaining her present. Through the book, she shared the emotional weight of her choices and gave readers a deeper look at what it means to leave one life for another. She didn't hide the struggles. She talked honestly about uncertainty, sacrifice, and the slow process of becoming comfortable in a completely different world. Although she never returned to acting, Dolores did not disappear completely from public life. She occasionally attended Catholic events and film retrospectives. She even appeared at the Academy Awards when the documentary God is the Bigger Elvis was nominated in 2012. It was a rare moment where her past and present overlapped, but she made it clear she was there as Mother Dolores Hart, not as a former actress revisiting old fame. That brings up the question many fans still ask. Would she ever come back? Well, her answer has always been the same. No. Dolores has consistently said she will not return to Hollywood. She views her religious vows as permanent and her decision as final. Acting belongs to an earlier chapter of her life. She doesn't see herself as someone who left unfinished business behind. She believes she completed that season and moved forward. She has explained that leaving movies was not about rejecting Hollywood, it was about embracing something deeper. She often says that her creativity didn't disappear, it simply changed form. Where she once expressed herself through film, she now expresses herself through faith, service, and leadership. In her own words, she sees her current life as a continuation of her artistry, just in a quieter and more personal way. Her occasional interviews and documentary appearances are not steps toward a comeback. They are opportunities to share her story, encourage others, and speak honestly about listening to inner conviction. Dolores Hart's journey was never about returning to the spotlight. It was about choosing meaning over momentum. And while fans may always wonder what kind of career she could have had, Dolores seems at peace with what she gained instead: a life built around purpose, community, and belief. She didn't walk away from fame expecting it to be easy. She walked away knowing it would be hard. And she chose it anyway. But what do you think? Did Dolores Hart make the right decision by leaving Hollywood? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you love juicy deep dives into celebrity lives, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss a new video.